Okay, let's dive in. Failure. It's pretty much universal, isn't it? No matter how hard you try, how smart you are, something's going to go wrong eventually. You'll miss the mark.
Absolutely. It's baked into the human experience. You plan, you execute. Sometimes it just doesn't land.
Right. But here's the thing that really fascinates me, and it's the core of our deep dive today. Failure might be inevitable, but feeling absolutely miserable about it, that part seems optional.
That is the crucial distinction. Often, it's not the actual event, the failed project, the rejection letter, whatever it is that causes the deepest pain. It's what happens next, inside our heads. That crushing feeling, the shame, the sense that you just can't face trying again. That's all manufactured internally. It's about how we process the failure.
So our mission today is basically to unpack that process. We want to look at the psychology of the bounce back. How do we avoid falling into that unhappiness pit when things go south?
Exactly. And more than just avoiding it, how do we actually use that experience? How do we turn that pit into a launch pad? We're going to get into the cognitive scaffolding, the mental structures needed.
Using real academic insights, right? We're looking at the behavioral science behind it.
Definitely. We've dug into the research, and it boils down to a few key psychological questions we need to answer for you.
Okay, what are they?
Well, first, why does our mind do that thing where one tiny mistake suddenly feels like a life-ending catastrophe, that automatic jump to the worst-case scenario?
Yeah, that immediate panic.
Second, there's this concept of fixed mindset. How does that specific way of thinking actually, psychologically paralyze us, keep us stuck?
Okay.
And third, and this is really practical, what can we actually do in the moment? When you feel that emotional wave hitting you after a failure, what are the concrete steps, backed by research like CBT and self-compassion, to manage it?
Got it. So arming ourselves with tools to handle the emotional storm first, so then we can actually use the failure as feedback.
Precisely. Manage the emotion, then leverage the data. Okay, so let's talk about why failure can lead to such intense unhappiness or shame. A cornerstone of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is this idea. The suffering rarely comes directly from the situation itself.
You mean the actual mistake or setback?
Exactly. It comes from how we interpret that mistake,
Yeah.
the meaning we assign to it. That's what triggers the really painful emotions.
I find that incredibly empowering, actually, because if the misery comes from our interpretation,
Then we can change the interpretation.
right, we have the power to interrupt that process, change the narrative in our head, and ultimately change the emotional outcome. It's not a fixed thing.
Precisely. And CBT helps us identify these specific, often habitual patterns of thinking that mess things up. They call them cognitive distortions. Think of them like mental traps.
Okay.
When we fail, there are a couple of these distortions that are particularly potent. They really sabotage our resilience.
What's the first big one?
The first one is this tendency to generalize like crazy. It's often called all or nothing thinking.
All or nothing. So black or white, no gray areas.
Exactly. A single mistake, one failed task, suddenly becomes proof that your entire identity is flawed or your whole future is doomed.
Can you give an example of how that sounds in someone's head?
Sure. It's like, I messed up this one presentation, therefore I'm completely incompetent at my job and my career is over. Or, maybe more personally, I skipped the gym today, therefore I have zero discipline, I'm a total failure, might as well give up on fitness altogether.
Wow, yeah. That's a huge leap, isn't it? From failing at a specific action
Which is temporary, often fixable.
to deciding you are a failure as a person,
Right.
which feels permanent.
Unchangeable.
That's the trap. Reality is almost always shades of gray, right? Performance, skill, it's all on a spectrum. But this distortion forces everything into extremes. Perfection or total disaster.
And that's paralyzing, because if you truly believe you're a complete failure.
Why would you even try again? What's the point? It guarantees you stay stuck.
Okay, that's a big one. What's the second major distortion you mentioned? The second one is called mental filtering. And this one can be really insidious, especially for people who are actually quite successful, but maybe highly self-critical.
How does that work?
Mental filtering is like having a spotlight that only shines on the negative. You selectively focus on the one thing that went wrong, even if there's tons of positive evidence right there.
So you ignore all the successes.
Completely. The sources use a great example. Imagine a project with 10 phases. You nail 9 of them perfectly. But one phase hits a snag. Where does your mind go? With mental filtering, it lives entirely in that one snag. You obsess over it. The 9 successes just vanish from view.
It's like the mistake creates a kind of psychological black hole that just sucks in all the positive.
That's a perfect way to put it, a black hole. It devours the context. The 90% success rate doesn't matter. The effort doesn't matter. Your reality becomes defined solely by that 10% error.
So if you find yourself feeling really down despite objectively having done well overall, that's a sign you might be caught in this filter.
Absolutely. You need to ask yourself, am I doing that all or nothing thing? Am I using this mental filter to basically delete my own accomplishments? That self-awareness is the first step.
Okay. These distortions explain what we think, but you mentioned something else affects how bad we feel. Personalization, where we assign blame.
Yes, the locus of control. This is huge for whether we recover or just sort of collapse emotionally. It's about why you think you failed.
And there are different ways to attribute that cause.
Two main paths,
Yeah.
and one is far more damaging than the other.
Let's start with the dangerous one then. What's that?
That's when you have a strong internal locus of control, but it's tied to fixed traits. Basically, extreme self-blame focused on who you are.
So thinking, I failed because I am.
Exactly. I failed the exam because I am stupid. Or, I didn't get the job because I am unlikable. You're locating the cause of the failure in some fundamental, unchangeable part of your personality or ability, your core identity.
And that's devastating.
It shatters self-respect. Because if the problem is just who you are, there's no hope, right? There's nothing you can do about it. So why bother trying again? It leads straight back to paralysis.
So what's the healthier alternative? The path to bouncing back?
That's shifting the locus to be either external or, crucially, effort-based and changeable.
Okay, break that down.
Instead of blaming a fixed trait, you attribute the failure to factors you can potentially control or to specific circumstances. So not, I failed because I'm stupid, but maybe.
I failed because I didn't study the right material, or I didn't allocate enough time.
Precisely. Or even, the questions were particularly tricky this time. You're looking at the strategy, the effort, the situation. The key thing is, it separates the failure event from your core identity.
Your sense of self remains intact.
Yes, you maintain your sense of competence, but you identify a flaw in the action, the method, or the preparation. The failure is about something you did or didn't do, not something you fundamentally are.
That distinction feels critical. Separating the action from the identity. That's the first escape hatch from the unhappiness pit.
It's the foundational step. The failure describes the method, not the person.
But what if people just try to avoid failing altogether? Is that a common trap too?
Oh, absolutely. That leads us to the final trap in this section, the false comfort of avoidance.
Just deciding not to even try, because failing feels too painful.
Exactly. The logic seems simple. If I don't put myself out there, I can't fail. If I can't fail, I won't feel that awful shame or disappointment. It's a defense mechanism.
But it comes at a cost, I assume.
A huge long-term cost. Sure, you get temporary relief from the anxiety of potentially failing, but what you sacrifice is, well, everything. Growth, learning, success.
You guarantee you won't succeed because you don't even try.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You end up with long-term regret, feeling stuck, maybe even watching others move forward. Avoidance prevents failure, yes, but it absolutely prevents success too. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of stagnation.
Okay, so we've mapped out these mental traps. Distortions like all or nothing, the danger of personalization, the dead end of avoidance. It feels like our own minds can be the biggest obstacle.
They often are. Which brings us right to the next crucial question.
If our thinking patterns trap us, what's the fix? What are the psychological tools, the frameworks backed by research that can help us rewire these automatic negative reactions?
That's exactly where we need to go next. We need to look at mindset theory and the power of self-compassion. Right, so moving from the problem to the solutions. Two of the most powerful concepts from psychology for dealing with failure-induced misery are Carol Dweck's work on mindset and Kristen Ness's research on self-compassion.
Let's start with Carol Dweck at Stanford. Her mindset theory has become really influential, hasn't it? It offers a fundamental way to reframe failure.
It really does. Dweck contrasts two core mindsets, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Let's look at fixed first.
Okay, what's the belief there?
If you're operating from a fixed mindset, you basically believe your core abilities, intelligence, talent, even things like social skills are innate. They're just fixed traits. You're born with a certain amount, and that's that.
You either have it or you don't.
Exactly. So think about what happens when someone with a fixed mindset fails.
Uh-oh. If ability is fixed, then failure must mean.
It means you don't have it. Failure becomes definitive proof of your inherent lack of talent or intelligence. It's seen as a verdict on your fundamental capability.
That sounds incredibly threatening. What's the reaction then?
It triggers intense shame, defensiveness, because your core self feels attacked and very often leads to just giving up on the task immediately.
Why give up?
Because if the failure proves you lack the necessary fixability, what's the point in trying again? Continuing would just expose that fundamental flaw even more. The priority becomes protecting your ego, not learning from the experience.
That totally explains the paralysis we talked about earlier. If failure equals I am incapable, then stopping makes sense in that mindset.
It's a logical, albeit self-defeating, response within that framework. But thankfully, there's another way.
The growth mindset.
Yes. The growth mindset is built on the belief that abilities and intelligence aren't fixed. They can be developed, they can grow through effort, through learning new strategies, through perseverance.
So talent isn't just something you're born with, it's something you build.
Exactly, like a muscle. It gets stronger with practice, with challenge. So when someone with a growth mindset encounters failure, it's interpreted completely differently.
How so?
It's not seen as a verdict on their identity at all. It's seen as information.
Information, like data.
Precisely. Failure is simply feedback. It's a signal that maybe you need to put in more effort or try a different approach or seek out new knowledge. It signals that the process needs adjustment, not that the person is deficient.
So the escape route from the misery is really about shifting that perception. Seeing failure not as I am bad, but as, okay, what can I learn here?
That's the core of it. Failure becomes part of the learning journey, not the end of the road. It reframes the entire experience.
Okay, conceptually, that makes perfect sense. Adopt a growth mindset. But what about the actual feeling of failure? Even if I intellectually understand growth mindset, that gut punch of disappointment, the shame, the frustration, that's still real, right?
Oh, absolutely real. The emotional pain doesn't just vanish because you understand a concept.
So how do we handle that immediate emotional fallout? How do we manage the storm so we can actually apply the growth mindset logic?
This is where the second crucial piece comes in. Self-compassion, based heavily on the work of Kristen Neff.
Self-compassion. Is that different from self-esteem? We hear a lot about building self-esteem.
It's fundamentally different, and that distinction is critical. The sources really emphasize this.
So why? What's the problem with self-esteem in the context of failure?
Self-esteem is often conditional. It's based on performance. Think about it. I feel good about myself if I succeed, or if I'm better than others, or if I look good.
So it depends on external validation or comparison.
Largely, yes. Which means the moment you fail, or don't measure up, what happens to your self-esteem?
It collapses.
It collapses. It's fragile because it's contingent on success. It's like a fair-weather friend, great when things are good, disappears when you stumble.
Okay, so how is self-compassion different? What's its foundation?
Self-compassion isn't conditional. It's about offering yourself kindness and understanding simply because you are a human being who is suffering or struggling, regardless of your performance. It's unconditional acceptance.
Like saying, I accept myself even though I fail.
Exactly. I accept myself as a human being, and failing is part of being human. I am worthy of kindness right now in this moment of pain. Neff breaks it down into three core components, three things we can actively practice.
Okay, practical components. Let's hear them. What's the first one?
First is self-kindness. This is basically about treating yourself the way you would treat a good friend who is going through the exact same failure.
Most of us are much harder on ourselves than on our friends.
Way harder. If your friend messed up, you wouldn't immediately start yelling at them, calling them stupid or worthless, right? You'd offer warmth, understanding, perspective.
Yeah, of course.
Self-kindness is about consciously interrupting that harsh inner critic and directing that same warmth and understanding toward yourself. It's actively choosing not to beat yourself up.
Okay, be kind to yourself like you would to a friend. What's the second component?
Second is common humanity. This one directly tackles that awful feeling of isolation that often comes with failure.
That feeling like I'm the only one who screws up this badly.
Exactly. Shame tells us our suffering and our failures are unique, that we're somehow uniquely flawed. Common humanity is the practice of actively reminding yourself that suffering, imperfection, and failure are universal parts of the shared human experience.
So remembering that everyone struggles. Yeah. Everyone fails.
Everyone. Even the people you admire most, they've all been there. Probably failed way more spectacularly than you realize. Recognizing this connects you to others. Rather than isolating you in shame, it normalizes the experience. This is hard. It's okay that it's hard. Others feel this too.
That sounds like it could really diffuse the intensity of the shame.
Yeah.
Okay, kindness, common humanity. What's the third component?
The third is mindfulness. but not in some overly mystical sense. Here, it means relating to your painful thoughts and feelings in a balanced way.
Balanced how?
It involves acknowledging the pain without getting swept away by it or trying to suppress it. So two things. First, not exaggerating, not letting the failure become this all-consuming catastrophe in your mind, seeing it clearly for what it is.
Okay, don't blow it out of proportion.
Right. And second, not suppressing or ignoring the pain either, not just gritting your teeth and pretending it doesn't hurt, or immediately distracting yourself. It's about allowing yourself to feel the disappointment or sadness, saying, okay, this feels bad right now, without judgment.
Just acknowledging the feeling is there.
Acknowledging it calmly. This non-judgmental awareness prevents you from getting stuck in either amplifying the pain or fighting against it, both of which just make it worse.
Okay, those three components, self-kindness, common humanity, mindfulness, make a lot of sense. But how do you actually do that when you're right in the middle of feeling terrible after a failure?
Great question. The sources actually offer a very specific, almost physical practice you can use in that moment to activate these components and ground yourself.
Oh, interesting. Like a first aid technique for emotional pain.
Kind of, yeah. When you feel that wave of shame or despair washing over you, the recommendation is to literally put your hand on your heart.
Okay, physically touch your heart.
Yes, it's a simple gesture of warmth and self-care. And as you do that, you consciously say three things to yourself internally.
What are the three things?
1, this is a moment of suffering. That's mindfulness acknowledging the pain without judgment.
Okay.
2, suffering is a part of life. Or other people feel this way too. That's common humanity connecting your experience to the universal human condition.
Right.
And 3, may I be kind to myself in this moment? Or may I give myself the compassion I need? That's self-kindness, setting the intention to treat yourself gently.
Hand on heart. Acknowledge the pain. Remember that it's human. Be kind.
Exactly. It sounds simple, but that pause, that physical anchor, that intentional reframing can genuinely interrupt the downward spiral of negative emotion. It shifts you
It shifts you from being sort of consumed by the feeling.
to being the observer of the feeling, offering yourself care. It moves you from being the victim of the emotion to being the agent who can manage it.
And that creates the space needed for the growth mindset to actually kick in, right? Once the emotional storm is calmed a bit.
Precisely. Self-compassion handles the immediate emotional fire, creating the stability needed to then engage the growth mindset's perspective of learning and improvement. You manage the emotion first, then you can rationally use the failure.
Okay, so we've got the mindset shift and the emotional regulation tool. What's the final piece? How do we actually turn that failure into fuel for the future? So we've covered how to protect our mindset and manage the emotional hit of failure using growth mindset and self-compassion. Now, how do we actually extract the value, turn it into useful feedback?
Right, this is about making the failure productive. We need a systematic way to analyze it rationally once the emotional dust has settled. The sources outline a practical 3-step loop for this.
A bounce back loop. Okay, what's step 1?
Step 1 is absolutely crucial, and it's called emotional suspension. You have to put the failure analysis on pause initially.
Pause. Don't analyze it right away.
Definitely not. Trying to rationally analyze why you failed while you're still flooded with shame, anger, or disappointment is basically impossible. Your rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, is essentially offline during intense emotional states.
So any conclusions you draw immediately after failing are likely to be skewed.
Highly skewed. Probably full of those cognitive distortions we talked about, all or nothing thinking, blaming yourself unfairly. You need to wait. Declare a temporary emotional quarantine on the event.
And during that quarantine period, you use the self-compassion tools.
Exactly. Use the hand-on-heart practice. Be kind to yourself. Remind yourself it's human. Just focus on calming the emotional storm. Only when you feel relatively neutral, when you can look at it without that intense charge, should you proceed to step 2.
Okay, so step 1, suspend analysis, apply self-compassion, wait for neutrality. Then step 2.
Step 2 is data collection. This requires putting on your, mental lab coat. You need to be objective, analytical, almost like a detective examining evidence.
The facts of what happened.
Exactly. Stripped of emotion, you focus only on the actions, the effort, the strategies used, and the outcomes. You absolutely avoid asking, why am I terrible?
So you're looking at the process, not the person. Combating that personalization trap again.
Critically important here. You ask specific, process-oriented questions. What specific steps did I take? Where did the process break down? Was the preparation sufficient? Did I use the right technique? What external factors played a role?
Not why am I so bad at this, but which specific action led to this undesirable result.
Perfect assumption. You're gathering objective data points about the method. Think of it like doing a failure autopsy clinical, detached, focused on cause and effect within the process.
Can we use that funding pitch example again? How would data collection look there?
Sure. The emotional reaction might be, I failed because I'm just not convincing. That's internal, fixed, unhelpful.
Right.
The data collection approach asks, did slide 7 clearly show the market size? Was the financial projection on slide 12 based on verifiable assumptions? Did I adequately address the competitor mentioned in the Q&A? See the difference?
Yeah, it's concrete, actionable. It's about the deck and the answers, not about inherent convincingness.
Exactly. You're generating a list of specific objective observations about the process and the materials.
Yeah.
That's your data.
Okay, so suspend emotion, collect objective data on the process. What's step 3?
Step 3 is feed forward. This is where you take the objective data you just collected and turn it into a concrete plan for the next attempt.
Feed forward, not just feedback. So it's future focused.
Entirely future-focused. Feedback analyzes the past. Feed forward plans the future based on that analysis. It asks, okay, based on the specific insufficiency identified in step 2, what exactly will I do differently next time?
And at least to be specific, right? Not just, I'll try harder.
Absolutely not. Try harder is uselessly vague. Feed forward demands concrete, tactical adjustments.
Give us an example, building on the pitch data.
Okay, so if data collection step 2 revealed that the competitor analysis was weak, the feed forward step 3 isn't do better research. It's, for the next pitch, I will allocate exactly 3 hours to building a competitor matrix using the XYZ framework, and I'll include specific counterarguments on slide 8.
Ah, okay, very specific, like a recipe for next time.
Or if you failed a fitness goal, and step 2 showed inconsistent rest days were the problem. Step 3 is, my new schedule, starting Monday, includes mandatory rest days on Tuesdays and Fridays entered into my calendar. It's an executable instruction derived directly from the failure data.
So this whole 3-step loop, suspend, collect, feed forward, it fundamentally changes the relationship with failure, doesn't it?
Completely. It turns it from a painful dead end into a structured learning opportunity.
And it forces a shift in how we even define success. Maybe success isn't just about the final outcome.
That's a profound point. If success is only the win, the perfect score, the achieved goal, we're setting ourselves up for fragility because outcomes aren't always 100% in our control.
So what's a more resilient definition?
Perhaps true success includes the willingness to engage in the difficult process, to learn from the setbacks using this kind of loop, and to persist with that growth mindset. Success becomes about the process of striving and learning, not just the final trophy.
That ties into concepts like Kaizen, doesn't it? Continuous improvement.
Exactly. Kaizen is all about small, incremental improvements over time. And from that perspective, failure isn't a disaster, it's essential fuel. It's the data point that tells you exactly where the next small improvement needs to happen.
Without the failure data, you wouldn't know what to adjust.
You'd just be guessing. Failure provides the most specific, targeted information for improvement you can possibly get. It normalizes setbacks as part of the path to mastery.
So the big takeaway message here, pulling it all together.
Failure defines your method, your strategy, maybe your effort in that specific instance. It absolutely does not define your identity or your fundamental worth.
And realizing that, internalizing that, is the key to bouncing back without the misery.
It is. Recognizing that the path to almost any significant achievement is paved with these learning opportunities we call failures.
Wow, okay. We've covered a lot of ground today. We started by seeing how our own thinking, those cognitive distortions like all or nothing, can trap us in misery after a failure.
Yeah, and how personalization makes it feel like it's all our fault, locking us down.
Then we looked at the escape routes. Carol Dweck's growth mindset, seeing failure as feedback, not a final judgment.
And crucially, Kristen Neff's work on self-compassion, using kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness to handle the immediate emotional pain, that hand-on-heart practice.
And finally, we landed on that practical 3-step action plan. Emotional suspension first.
Get neutral.
Then objective data collection.
Analyze the process, not the person.
And targeted feed forward.
Plan the next specific action. It's a loop for growth.
It really reframes the whole experience. Instead of running from failure, this approach encourages us to, well, almost lean into it, but with the right tools to manage the emotion and extract the lesson.
It's about choosing learning over avoidance, growth over stagnation, accepting that the hard lessons are often the most valuable ones.
So we want to leave you, our listeners, with a final thought to mull over, building on everything we've discussed.
Yeah, a reflection point. If we accept that the deep fear of failure is often tangled up with a fixed mindset, that fear of being judged for lacking some innate ability,
A fear we now have tools to disarm.
right? Then the question becomes, what have you been avoiding? What goal, what skill, what project, maybe even what conversation have you been putting off, purely because you haven't given yourself permission to fail along the way? To operate with that growth mindset and just collect the initial data.
What potential are you leaving unexplored because the fear of initial failure, the fear of feedback is holding you back?
Something to think about. Where could you apply these ideas starting today?